Welcome to Socializing Security, where every week we have a discussion about security, compliance, and beyond.
Our goal is to learn and grow by socializing each week's topic with each other, our guests, and with you.
A quick compliance note, this podcast is meant for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal or regulatory advice.
We're glad you've joined us, and we hope you'll learn along with us.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Socializing Security. I am a solo host today. My name is Milou Meier, and I'm here of our show, Socializing Security. I do this in conjunction with a really close friend of mine, Brian Knutson, and I am a little bit nervous to be here today. Brian has done a couple of these episodes before, and we joke between the two of us when we're recording that these are Brian's rants, and I have been a little bit more shy than he is, just, I think, given our backgrounds on what we do. Some of the public speaking webinar type work just comes really naturally to him because that's a lot of what he does in his day job. So I'm going to try my best to speak slowly because I really talk on hyperspeed when I'm nervous. So you're going to bear with me, but I'm going to kick it off with just having you picture it. So listen with me and imagine something. Picture it. It's 1956 in Sicily. I'm joking. If you know me really well, that is absolutely a reference from Golden Girls, which is one of my all-time favorite TV shows. But I do want you to picture it because today I'm going to share some of the woes that I'm experiencing as an ITSM, IT service provider, compliance practitioner, small business owner. Picture it. You're in tech. You own a small business. It's 2025, the end of 2025. We're close to the end of the year. It's Q4. I'm exhausted. You're exhausted. We're all tired. We're looking forward to the holidays. We're so close. And that's really the lens that I want to have our discussion about today. So I want you to picture it of what it's like today for the day of the life of a founder, CEO, as well as a consultant, a content creator, and just somebody who really cares about security and IT. And we're saying information technology when I say IT. I'm exhausted. And I say that with knowing that I still sign on to my job and to my work and to what I do for a living with enthusiasm. And I try to come in with positivity every day. But my goodness, am I tired? And I don't want this to turn into another CISO complaining about, oh, woe is me, the security industry, nobody's listening. Because I think that's still a thing. And I know that Ryan and I have spoken with some of our past guests who have socialized with us about that, whether on the air or, privately as we've been getting ready for sessions. But there is a little bit of a trope or a stereotype that security professionals are always the one that are coming in. Also compliance, by the way. Security, let's wrap these into one on this call today, that compliance and security professionals come in and they're the function of no. They are the naysayers. They're the police officers. They are sometimes law enforcement within an organization. And those things are true. I'm not here to tell you that that's not the truth in the case that compliance and security, IT, HR, finance, pretty much most back-end operation type role, for the most part, succeeds within an organization if there's guardrails in place, right? If there are some guidelines that we like to follow, that does not mean that compliance and security professionals are not innovative, are not excitable, are not passionate about what they're doing. If you're working with great ones, I know many of them, I hope to be one as well, that I come from a place of yes, for the most part, as a creative compliance officer, right? I have a legal background, I have my compliance background, I have regulatory technical background, and I have really tried to come up with a creative solution that works within the boundaries of the regulatory system that we're considering, so the applicable law that we're looking at, and then think about it in a creative lens from what is the risk to the actual business that I'm supporting? Who is going to get impacted if there's a data breach? Or in the worst case, if some type of crazy freak scenario came to light, what's the worst that could happen? And that's what I define as risk management. But all that to say that compliance and security folks in general, I'm not speaking for all of them, I'm only speaking for myself. I'm really tired. And I'm not saying that I don't want to be a doomsdayer. I know Brian and I get into this sometimes on podcasts and we just get worried about the naysaying and, we don't want to just do a lot of fear mongering, which is pretty common in the security space. Is part of why we started the podcast that we did already close to 2 years now, that, we've been working on this because we wanted to socialize about information security at a low stakes, entry level, friendly level, where sometimes we do highlight certain things that Brian and I worry about and some of the things that keep us up at night. We bring in some wonderful experts and we talk about the things that they care about. And, we have these incredible conversations. I wish under our release that, we could just record the second that somebody enters our virtual room here at the podcast. But, we do try to respect everybody's boundaries of what they feel comfortable with, what they're comfortable that we share publicly. We really do try to balance and toe that line of being, hey, we're content creators. And also, we really want to just be kind, respectful, good humans. I'm so tired though. And this is why. So I'm just going to walk you through some of the stuff that, from my perspective, as somebody who wears the hat as a compliance officer, who wears a CISO hat, who wears a legal officer hat, who wears IT ops. I wear these different operational hats for the clients that do business with me. And I am just really speaking from my own personal experience today. This is an episode of Milou Speaks the Truth. That is a tagline that friends gave to me in college a long time ago. So on this episode of Milou Speaks the Truth, I wanted to just talk about the fact that I am so frustrated by my own personal technology right now. I'm not going to show you the front cover of my phone, but I'm happy to show you that I have this type of phone. I do have Apple products. I have 2 of them. And for me, because the updates patches have been pushing so frequently, here's a prime example. Now suddenly I look at my phone. It's supposed to be on Do Not Disturb. Everything is not connected right now. And I'm getting an unexpected IT symbol. I can read this and then understand that there is some connection between the way that this phone is set up and the computer that I'm currently using to record on. This is the type of noise and alert fatigue that is making it really hard for me to do my job, for me to text my friends back, for me to just, this was actually quite ironic because I just got kicked out of this session with Riverside. That's the platform that we use when we edit. And it turns out the thing that I was concerned about was actually the microphone that I'm using today and not this beautiful mic that I have that is lit up and supposedly connected. So there you go. I'm exhausted. I'm just going to roll through with this. We're going to see how this goes on the back end. Brian's going to love this later. Anyways, for example, my technology right now is not playing nicely with one another. And the reason that is because I have a work phone, corporate device that I use for mobile device management. For any of my, client, customer facing type work, my personal life is not on this phone. It shouldn't be on this phone. I don't want it on this phone. I want to occasionally, when I spend time with friends and family, that I can put that aside, disconnect from Slack completely, and just enjoy from a personal phone, which I have that too. So I now have 2 phones, and that's fine in theory if both phones were from the same OS, the same operating system. That's not the case because, small business owners generally were kind of balling on a budget. So I didn't get the latest and greatest cell phone. I didn't need it. I need limited functionality. I need people to be able to reach me, to text me, to be able to download devices. I did not need the latest and greatest iPhone for my business reasons. My personal stuff, though, I personally love taking photographs. And that's a really important part of my personal life. So for me, it was actually important to update to a newer personal device. Now, obviously, I couldn't even tell you what version I'm on right now just because this is how much IT noise and alert fatigue I'm experiencing at the moment just in my personal life. And the reason why I think it's so important to talk about this on a forum like this is I want you to know that if you're feeling any of this type of frustration lately, which I generally call friction, so if your information technology stack, your suite isn't feeling frictionless, which means ideally, you go to your laptop, you do your biometric scan on your security key, or you type in your password, you get your 2-factor. Everything feels easy. Your systems are working. Your Wi-Fi is on. You're not having any Chrome updates. Your software is perfectly up to date. You're not noticing any lag. That to me is what I think of when I think of frictionless IT. That means that my information technology stack, my suite works so well together that my end users, whoever they are, can just log in and it feels easy for them to get to work. It feels easy for them to edit their pictures on their personal laptops. It just feels easy. That's what I generally use to explain IT ops, like IT service management. And under the ITIL framework, there's just certain things that as an IT professional, it's really lovely to see teams excel, especially startups and technology companies, honestly, any organization, whether you're a one-person shop or a very large company, we can all understand how frustrating it is when your laptop doesn't work or your printer got jammed or your phone won't unlock. I think at this point in the technology age that we're living in, I think most of us can relate to those examples now of just understanding like, oh, my Google Doc didn't back up properly, or I lost a copy of this thing. And whether that's a physical thing still or an online thing. I don't really care in the example, but I just want you to picture this. What is that frictionless IT environment for you? And for myself right now, since I advise and support companies building these types of strategies and frameworks of making sure that, their IT stack fits within their regulatory compliance environment and their legal requirements, their contracts, and their security things. There's all these other different components. We haven't even talked about data governance on this one, and I know we've had some awesome episodes come out recently about that, so please do tune into those. But there are all these different things that are coming within our IT infrastructure and our entire ecosystem, that because we have so many different interconnected things, different applications on your phone, different icons on your laptop, right? Different websites that you like to visit. I use different browser profiles, and I use private browsers and other ones, and I use plugins, and I'm doing all this extra work to try to secure my systems to protect my data so that I protect my personal risk, my personal information, and definitely my customer information. But it does come with a caveat that being secure can often feel like extra work, and it can make it harder for people to do their jobs. And that's so not the point, right? And so that's what I'm trying to belabor here, as when we're picturing what we want our ideal data look like in a work environment, in your home office, when you're messaging with your friends, whatever that looks like for you, if you can picture what that looked like, ideally the technology that you have can support also the budget constraints that you have, and also, the different lenses that you have within your community for the things that are important to you, right? I think the Nextdoor app is a great example that I'm not sure. I think a lot of us have probably heard of it, right? It's a community app that, your neighbors can put things that are lost and found, or they can ask for help, or they can ask for things. And depending on where you are within that neighborhood, you can sign into different zip codes, for example. If you move, the next door neighborhood community could be really different. And it's a tangible example of just thinking about how our IT system and environment can also change within our regional community, our local community, within friend groups. I know I've shared before on the podcast that I have certain communications and conversations I use, private messaging apps for. I personally use Signal very often for that. But Signal only works really well if you have reliable internet connection and Wi-Fi and data. If you're suddenly, say, traveling on a subway in New York City and your phone wants to default to cell service, it's not going to be the most reliable platform to use in the case of an emergency, or if you really need to reach somebody when you're, in the depths of the subway in New York City, for example. That is an example where we're just seeing, because so many software applications are advancing so rapidly with the rise of artificial intelligence and generative AI and, all these different lenses, we're also just seeing apps are getting updated more often. Our OSs, our operating systems on our laptops, on our personal devices are getting updated. And suddenly, when my older work phone feels clunky, it starts to feel clunkier because I'm starting to get used to my personal phone and using that more often, with understanding that my personal phone now comes with fancier technology because it's newer. It can support different things. Apparently, the phone that I'm using right now might actually be fancier because it's currently recording my voice, but that means that there's a privacy setting or security setting that I haven't really reviewed yet on this device that's clearly making my laptop think that it should prioritize this microphone as opposed to this microphone. And these are just small examples for me that I find super irritating. So I just also wanted to come on here today and tell you that if the way that IT change, especially with AI and how quickly technology companies are moving in what's kind of, the 2025 types of arms race, but for AI, and we're seeing all of this push, all of these very large technology giants invest a lot of money in resources and talent and all of these things, we're noticing that some of the things that organizations used to be expected and required to do well, like effective patch management or vulnerability management or incident response, might be falling to the wayside because they're focusing more heavily on research and development, on R&D and innovation. I'm speaking really from my own personal experience here on behalf of me, myself, and I here on the Socializing Security podcast. I'm sure Brian has a lot of thoughts about this, so I'd be curious. Maybe I'll have him reply to this, or we'll chat about it in our next episode. But I personally am seeing that I am feeling very frustrated that now, with phishing and spam getting so intelligent and so sophisticated, I'm having to triple check my work. Not that I'm not saying that I always used to, I have always had to stop and slow down. I'm somebody who moves just really rapidly through life. I'm going to take a breath there. That was a good cue for me to remind myself to slow down. See, so I, as an individual, move quite quickly through life, which means I often make really silly mistakes. And, you know, totally okay if occasionally you put a letter in the mail without a stamp. I've done that. Fine. Not a big deal. But when we're starting to talk about accidentally clicking a link because I'm using the wrong browser on my work phone instead of my personal device, or I'm using a different browser type on one phone and the other, it's also, I'm just noticing I'm having a harder time just getting used to like, oh, this is right on this phone. I have the button on the side of how I adjust my volume up and down. On this one, there is no button, right? So like there's no button and that's all fine and dandy, but there is no thing there. So that can be really annoying because as simple as I am now used to in work meetings, right? I can just really quickly with a click of a button, actually just turn this on and off, which for me, from an accessibility perspective, I actually think is a really wonderful thing. I don't love on my newer phone that I now have to unlock my device, scroll down, and hit on or off. And I'm still not confident for some reason in this one. I just felt better confidence that this was really off when in the middle of a meeting or an important discussion, I could look down, I could see that I see on the side of my phone and know, okay, this is silenced. I'm not going to accidentally interrupt somebody when they're saying something really important or be that person whose phone goes off in the middle of the movies, right? These are just small examples that I've been thinking about in my day-to-day life that I've noticed that my personal IT stack has become full of friction. And I find that super, super frustrating. And I wanted to just get on here and explain it from somebody in the space to also just reiterate that we're not alone in this, any of us. This is where listening to a podcast like this is great help. Reaching out and asking your friends, like what's working well. I, work with a lot of other sole proprietors and other, small business owners. And, we just also talk about, hey, what technology is working for your stack versus, what's not, or, what's working well or not. I think we mentioned this on a recent episode. I'd have to refer back, but there is something that I'm just noticing within our smaller compliance security networking community that because maybe the job market feels really tough, in the US or in the technology space, wherever, what global view community you're looking at this from, maybe those things are forcing us to reconnect in different ways, whether that's I'm seeing a lot of teams go back into the office full-time or part-time or hybrid because they're seeking additional connection. In the same way that individuals are reaching out and doing different things on platforms such as LinkedIn or TikTok or things that might not have been in their comfort level. People are looking for connection in different places, but IT can, again, generally enhance or support that. I personally use authenticator apps. I find that great. And then sometimes I forget, wait, is this a corporate system or is it a personal system? Did I put the authenticator code on which device? Which account is it linked to? And that slows me down. And so I have to reflect and think about that and also readjust and reevaluate where my personal security risk tolerance sits. I actually just recently, again, had to scale back from using certain types of encryption technologies and different types of communication and collaboration tools because I'm realizing this is slowing me down too much. I need to prioritize something else and think through, I'll give you a more tangible example. I'm moving maybe from like one more private or secure web browser to one that's a little bit less private. And I'm not saying I'm suddenly airing dirty laundry on that browser, but I was really trying my best to use a more private browser just because it made me feel better for my own personal privacy reasons. However, I can do that in my personal life and that's fine and great. But in my corporate life, in my work life, if it's slowing me down or say my clients don't use that browser and then suddenly if I'm sending them a link, it gets really messy because they can't open it on their default browser, it just starts feeling frustrating. And so as I'm thinking about where we're headed into 2026, and I'm sure Brian and I, again, will do our thoughts and reflections, hopefully earlier this year than we did last year. We will do a look back episode and we'll definitely think through also making sure we have all of these wonderful thoughts on personal privacy and corporate privacy that we've talked about when we talk about with our guests who socialize with us. But me personally, as I'm heading the end of the year, this is really the end of the year for me, full-time working for myself, which is a really exciting and also terrifying thing to say. I want to think about what can I do in my day-to-day to help make my IT stack, the systems that I'm using, how I'm doing the job that I really want to keep doing. How can I make that feel frictionless for myself? I'm not really only no longer thinking about my end user, my client, their end users, their customers, how they experience their platform, how their IT team. No, I am just thinking about this from a me, myself, and I perspective of me as Milou Meier, who owns a company called Compliance Counsel and a law firm who calls Cyber Counsel and is a co-founder of a podcast called Socializing Security. How can I step back and just say, wait, if I were advising these organizations or these entities, not as myself, but as somebody from the outside looking in, what are the types of IT organizational change management recommendations or compliance suggestions or legal updates I could think through and help support myself in making my work feel frictionless? Maybe I will end up upgrading my phone because it doesn't make sense that I have a Lightning and a USB-C charger. You know how annoying that is? It now means that I need 2 chargers on me 24/7. Maybe it means that I will update one, or maybe I would scale back the other. Probably not again, because I said I really like cameras. And so for me, that's a really important thing on my personal phone. Or what I could do is maybe get a converter right for the bottom of my cell phone that converts from Lightning to USB. That exists. But usually kind of sticks out in the bottom, and I'm somebody who does a lot of FaceTime or video calls, and if it doesn't sit perfectly right, it's going to bother me. This is the type of reflection I plan on doing as I am closing out 2025 and heading into 2026. And I hope you will join me in that. I would love this to be an ongoing discussion with our Socializing Security community members, whether that's on Instagram, on YouTube, and LinkedIn. We both really need to get better about posting on TikTok regularly. I've done it sometimes. We are on TikTok. We posted very few times, but otherwise you can find me on TikTok too for Compliance Counsel. I kind of have a thing there as well. So continue to engage with me. Again, please do also always feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn in a direct message. Definitely say you're a listener of the podcast. That would make my day. And let me know what are the things that are making your life feel easier in the technology space, because I really need that right now. So I am open-ended asking for help from my friends of the podcast, all of our Socializing Security guests, people that listen, anybody that stumbled upon the video. Thank you so much. And listen to this podcast. Thank you so much. I want to think through how can I continue to make my life easier when I think about it and picture what I want my company, my work life, my professional life, my personal life to look like when I think about, I'm going to start my work day today and I'm going to plug in my laptop. I'm going to have a couple of screens. I'm going to plug that in. I do not want to get an auto update notification. I want it to already be automated, updated. Okay, great. I'm enrolled in auto update, but it means that when a large provider such as Apple rolls out changes, sometimes it slows me down because I've decided to being like, hey, it's really important for me without me having to think through my patch schedule, right? I've just personally decided auto updates work well for me on a certain cadence, right? These are small decisions that I've made within my organization that I need to just take a step back and think about, do these still make sense? Having an older phone with a different cable still makes sense for me? Am I even in a position to procure a new phone? That's a different thing, right? There's also, phones are expensive. So there are different things that I need to weigh as a business owner and think through what actually still makes sense for myself. And I might choose, I'm picking on my phone right today. I might choose that this is not the right time. I will say this really bugs me. I have a chip on this case. I also have a black phone case. My husband also has a black phone case, which means we also grab the wrong phones very often. So I can definitely make a commitment to myself that for the holidays, I will probably treat myself to a new prettier case. Maybe it will be a fun color or something. I have a pop socket on my personal phone that has a funny furry friend on it. So there are things that we can think about that would make our lives easier or would make me feel better about an outdated phone, for example, that don't require a lot of investment, but might make me feel more joy, make me get more excited about using a different device, because I can personally admit having 2 phones is often frustrating. As much as I feel incredibly privileged to be able to say that I have the ability to have these 2 cell phones to try to create some of that separation between my work life and my personal life, a lot of other people aren't so fortunate. So I recognize that, and also just want to say sometimes it's kind of annoying. And that's okay. So as we're heading in towards the end of the year, and we're all pushing, getting ready for the holidays. We're getting ready for, big Q4 goals, whatever it is that you're pushing through. I would hope that you can take some time to reflect with us here at Socializing Security, socialize this idea with us, think about it, reflect on it, and then come back to me, whether it's on the podcast, whether it's in a LinkedIn DM. You can reach out to me otherwise through Compliance Council. Reach out to me via Socializing Security too. We have info@socializingsecurity.com. You can reach out to us via email. Help us brainstorm ideas on how we can make our IT stack more seamless for the podcast, how I can do it for my businesses, or how we can support you in thinking about what you would picture if your IT service management, your IT experience really felt frictionless in 2026, because that is something that I'm wishing for every single one of you for next year. All right. Thanks for socializing with me. Again, my name is Milou. I'm super happy to be here. If you listened to the whole episode, thank you so much. This made me nervous. So thank you so much for bearing with me and letting me just talk it out with you. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Socializing Security. We hope you learned a thing or two with us.
If you'd like to continue socializing with us on this topic or have feedback, we'd love to hear from you on LinkedIn or social media. Just search for Socializing Security. Or you can email us at info@socializingsecurity.com.
Until next time, stay social and stay secure.